Hello, everyone. I think this is working. I'm waiting for it to pop up. I feel like I look really silly here. I don't even know. I feel like I created too many live streams because I was trying to figure out how to set this up, and I feel like I created like a second scheduled one that I can't figure out how to stream to. But hopefully 2 of you found me. Hopefully a few more of you are going to find me. So here's how this is going to work. SAT questions, bring it. I can screen share. I've figured out, this is like what I've spent the last half hour of my life doing, how to share my Notability so I can get out problems, I can work things. There might be a little bit of delay between what I actually say and what appears on YouTube. I feel like there's like a 30-second delay as if I'm like a real broadcaster. Anyhow, if you have questions, go ahead and bring it. In the meantime, the other thing that I'll say, we're having a couple of what we call super seminars this weekend. Those are going to be 2-hour classes for people who are high scorers or want to be high scorers, who are ambitious. We have a whole bunch of those available here. Maybe I can throw the little banner up in my Notability really quickly. Let's do this while I wait for questions to roll in, because I don't think anyone has pasted any questions, because people are probably in the waiting room for this other live stream that I'm not sure something went wrong. Exactly. Studio.youtube. I don't know what's going on, but 3 of you found me here. It's live right now. Let's go to live. Let's see what's happening. I think 21 people are in here. I don't have any questions yet, though. Hopefully some people will ask some questions in a minute. Oh, damn it. This is like completely wrong. This is like logged out of the wrong account. I don't understand that. Okay, so let me try over here. I am just trying to, where is my video? Here, I'm like, and I feel like this is super laggy. Somebody needs advice about the SAT, and somebody else wants me to talk about the digital SAT. Okay, I can do both those things. Let me just try to get, I feel like I'm having some technical issues right now because my youtube.com won't load and my video seems to be freezing like crazy, and it just like is logging me into another account. Sign out, sign in. I think my account is like logging me out right now. Okay, people are actually asking questions now, so maybe I'll start to answer these. And like I said, there's a little bit of a lag. Somebody asked, what is not on PSAT that is on SAT? A few things. One thing, the PSAT is basically focused on juniors who haven't finished their year, and the College Board assumes that maybe you haven't necessarily finished your what's it called? You haven't necessarily finished your Algebra 2 at that point. So you may not have Algebra 2 problems on the PSAT as often, and otherwise it's kind of the same, except that this year the PSAT will be digital and the US SAT is still the paper-based test. So they're 2 totally different tests. So that's kind of a big deal. Okay, what's next? How to get better at the SAT. Well, that's super general. Do you think there is any chance they offer the digital SAT for 2024 students in the US? I really want those short reading passages. What I will say is the College Board is coming out with a lot of test cases of the digital SAT. So like over the course of the last year, they've given the opportunity to students who are taking the regular paper-based SAT and sign up for that test to also take the digital test, because they're trying to equate the two tests together. And so they've been reaching out to students, sending them emails. Sometimes when you sign up for the SAT, they'll then like give you an email and say, hey, would you like to take the digital SAT? And you might get an invitation. So that's kind of the only way to take it, is if you get a special invitation. You're not going to be able to sign up for it, so to speak. You'd have to be invited. But then if you are invited, you could take it. But it's not going to be, you know, that's probably going to be 2% of test takers. So rare. What else? What do you think about the math section being fully calculator allowed? Well, that's cool. It's going to make it less stressful for people who really crutch on their calculators. Me as a teacher always get replies. Okay. I don't know. How important is the SAT for an international student in terms of acceptance and scholarships? So, I mean, it depends on the kind of school that you're applying to. The way that schools are treating the SAT right now is really varying based on the kind of school. We have like the California schools, like UCs, basically aren't really looking at test scores at all. With international applicants, it's a little bit of a different story, but UCs are basically test blind, so they're not going to look at it at all. But then you have schools like MIT that are requiring the test. I would say the majority of schools are going to look at and value the SAT. I think if you're an international student, it becomes even more important because you're not going to school in the US and they really want to see that English fluency. They want to understand that you can read difficult passages, and they want it in a proctored environment, not in an inflated grade environment. And that matters, and that speaks to something. So I do think it's important. I also know that international students tend not to have as many like wow activities. So I do think it's more important with international students. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but baseline, you should be scoring. Okay, what do you think? So let's see what else we have here. Best tip for increasing speed in the science area. I already skip all of the passages and I still have trouble finishing in time. Well, there's your issue right there. You just said you skip all the passages, so you're not reading anything. I think you're talking about science and the SAT. Oh, you're talking about the ACT. Oh, okay. I'm going to talk about SAT today because I advertise this as an SAT. So that, yes, you do skip the passages. On the SAT, I recommend that you read all the passages though. And I do have some other videos on that if you wanted to check that out. Would taking the SAT to get a higher score still help me? I am a senior. Can you guys see my video, by the way? It looks super frozen. I don't know. Oh, you know what? It's just my display. It's fine. Anyhow, okay. Would taking the SAT to get a higher score still help me? I am a senior and already committed to a college. Would a scholarship be the only reason to retake it? Asks Chris. There's a couple reasons to retake the SAT as a senior. One reason is if you're deferred or waitlisted somewhere. And I've had students who are deferred or waitlisted send their SAT score because that they knew was the weakest link, and maybe they were applying to a place like Georgia Tech that still looks at test scores, and they knew that their SAT was low, but everything else seemed in place, and then they can send that to the college to try to get off the wait list with their letter of continued interest, right? Or with your deferred admission. Like I had a student that I've been tutoring that just took the ACT, and she's a senior, and it's a Hail Mary because she applied test optional because she knew her test scores didn't reflect her abilities, because she just has test anxiety. So she took it again, and we'll see what her score is in a week or so. But that's worth it because she has everything else in place, and it's just she doesn't have that test score. And if she could add that to the profile to the college she's been deferred by, you know, maybe that can help her out. So that's one reason to take it. The second reason is scholarships, especially if you're looking at like state schools. A lot of them have like automatic scholarship consideration if you hit particular numbers on tests, and in those cases, it can be totally worth it. Yes, it is good already. And then everybody else is just saying, give me tips on the SAT. What do you know about American University? I don't know that has anything to do with the SAT. So I'm going to keep rolling here. So people wanted SAT tips. Maybe we can talk about it. What do you struggle with on the SAT? What kind of questions can you give me? Do you want reading? Do you want math? Can we narrow it a little bit? Can we be a little bit more specific in our requests? I feel like some of these questions are overly general. Oh, how do you answer questions for literature about evidence and narrator implications? There's a nice specific one. How do you answer questions for literature about evidence and narrative implications? So I will pull something up. Hold on just a second. Okay. I will pull that up. Okay, let's, I don't know how do I, don't know how to, okay, I'm just gonna move my head. We're gonna like just doctor this somehow. I'm going the wrong direction. Okay, there. This is what happens when things are backwards. I'm going to smush myself into the corner of the screen somehow. And hopefully the wide angle lens isn't too ugly. And open this up, and I'm gonna pull up a passage, and we'll talk a little bit about literature and how that works. Cool. I'm going to pull up my Notability. Let's go to over here. Oops, I did not mean to move that. I meant to move this. Okay, so I'm going to pull up, let's do grammar. Nope. Let's see, do I have that in here? No, I wasn't teaching from that. Here we go. Okay, so this is a literature passage that I created, so it's not like official SAT. It's something, we have it on my online course. If any of you are on the online course, I've also used it in some of my crash courses and things like that. But let me just go back to what the question was. I'm gonna go over here. I'm just gonna move my face. How do I get this to go on top? Do I like reverse it? I'm like so bad at this. I don't know how. This is like things I don't usually do is like live stream on YouTube with like weird software. Okay, there we go. I think I got everything in, but I'm like at the edge of my wide angle lens, and so my face looks really weird. And I keep like popping out of screen, and I don't mean to. Okay, so I'm gonna look at this. And this is dun, 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 dun. Teacher, answer questions about evidence and narrative implications. Okay, so let's do evidence first, because those are two things. Those are two different things. All right, so evidence. We're gonna do evidence. Okay, evidence. So evidence questions, the first thing that I always like to say with an evidence question, should I do the really hard one? Maybe I'll give you the really hard one. In the context, I'm going to do the really hard one. I'm going to save the really hard one for my super seminar this weekend, because that's what I usually do in my super seminar. But I'm going to go right here with 3 and 4, and I'll teach you guys just a little bit about evidence questions. And what one of my favorite things to think about is, so this one says the passage suggests that Korszunsky views Kitty as, and then I have 4 answer choices and I've got 4 quotes. So one of the things that some people do that sometimes results in bad answer choices is they go here on the lines and they start reading, and I like to read them backwards. So I'm going to go to 28 to 31. And what does 28 to 31 say? 25, 26, 27, 28. 28 to 31 says, and he was there. Kitty had not seen him since the evening she refused Levin, right? Okay, how does he view Kitty? I don't know about that. 18 to 20. So if I go to 18 to 20, I get, but she was in the middle stage between these two. She was excited, and at the same time, she had sufficient self-possession to be able to observe. So some of you might take that quote, you're like looking through things, and you just read that quote, and then you go up here, particularly observant of her surroundings, and you might go to this first. Do you guys see what I mean? You go to this first, and you say, oh, that sounded pretty good. Oh, that sounded pretty good. And you move on, and you're done, okay? And then you're going to get yourself in big trouble. Big trouble. And here's why. Because you didn't take into account what I call the scope of the question. So the most important thing, I think, when you're looking at this kind of question is to really first figure out what I call is the scope of the question. That means you're looking at all the words here and you're really honing on what are my key words. So here it's Korszunsky views Kitty as. So I really have to check my people. I have to make sure I have the right people. I need Korszunsky and then I need Kitty. And here's the problem with this, even though these pair. This isn't Korszunsky talking, okay? But you can see how it could happen, right? And it's not good how it happens. The actual reason has to be somewhere where Korsunski is talking or acting or walking. It's got to be about Korsunski. So here's this guy, Korsunski. He's, by the way, the first star in the hierarchy of the ballroom, a renowned director of dancers, a married man, a handsome and well-built. And here's the part where he interacts with Kitty. "It's a rest to waltz with you," he said to her as they fell into the first slow steps of the waltz. "It's exquisite, such lightness, precision." He said to her the same thing he said to almost all his partners whom he knew well. So you can see there's a little bit of contrast in here. Up here, he seems to be complimenting her and really nice. And then down here it says, oh, he flatters everybody he talks to, right? And then it says she smiled at his praise, and then she started to look over his shoulder. And then this is just her reactions, right? That's not him. So in order to be right, we need to be in the right neighborhood. We need to have the right scope of the question. So that scope is going to be right in this paragraph right here. So now I'm going to go back down to my question and we can look at this. And so, oops, I didn't mean to put C, I meant to put D here, particularly observant of her surroundings. I circled the wrong one. But when I look at this, we have one of many romantic interests. That's just a misread. He's just the star of the dance. It doesn't say he's being romantic. It just says he's like, oh, you dance so nicely. And he's just the star of the dance. More exceptional a dancer than most. You can see how some people might put this, but the word more is a comparison word. Generally on the SAT, comparisons have to be explicit. And I would say here, again, it was pure flattery. It was just flattery. And that was the idea that was going on. So then we have similar to others in his social circle, and this really resonates with that idea that we read that said, oh yeah, this was just flattery. He tells everybody the same thing, right? So it's more likely that he thinks she's similar than she's more exceptional a dancer than most because he's saying the same thing, right? And then we just need to find the quote that goes with that. Now, sometimes I do these in order. Sometimes I do them out of order. On the science section, I tend to do them out of order more often. But my point is to you guys, the thing that I want you to focus on the most when you get to these is what I call scope of the question. That means you're looking at your keywords and you're not just reading and figuring out what pairs. You're saying, what is the question asking about? And what are those keywords in that question stem, and how do they align with the passage, and how can I really line them up? Okay, and that's just a tip there. Okay, I answered one of those two people's questions, so I'm gonna pull my video back over here. I still don't know how to like adjust my video, so it's not, I don't know. Anyhow, I'm gonna go back to our questions here and see what else people have asked, because we've got another 15 minutes, and we'll see what else people asked about. How long do you think we should study for the SAT on average? I find the greatest gains come in probably 3 to 6 months of prep. If you're doing more than 6 months of prep, the curve starts to flatten out and you tend to get less bang for your buck in terms of prep. So if you're studying more than 6 months, it becomes incremental a lot of the time. Now, I will add to that, sometimes people are approaching their studies wrong. Sometimes they keep practicing bad habits. Sometimes they just go over practice tests and they're not getting any insight into why they're doing what they're doing, and they keep like not necessarily approaching it correctly, or they don't have good materials. And then sometimes somebody can prep for 6 months and then they come to me as a private tutor and we figure out actually what's going on, and boom, in 2 weeks we've completely rerouted them and they're on a different path. So there's certainly exceptions to that. Like if you've already been studying for 6 months, it doesn't mean like there's no hope for you, but it might mean that you need something else to shake it up or unlock what it is that you're struggling with. What is your opinion when daughter refuses to take the SAT because college is test optional? Here's what I have to say about that. First, there's some statistics that are out there, and I probably share these in some of my test optional videos. And all these schools stopped sharing that information because they got in trouble from like the test optional, people who are always haunting the press, etc. But there's statistics that show at schools like Georgia Tech, at schools like Vanderbilt, when people submit scores, they have sometimes a 50% to 300% advantage in admissions. Would your daughter not do any activities because you don't have to do activities to get into a college? I don't know. It just makes her a weaker candidate. And if you don't even try, you're throwing away a potential opportunity. So, I mean, that's probably what I would say to her, is that just because it's optional doesn't mean it's not extremely helpful, or it won't potentially raise your chances by 50 to 300%. And there's some statistics on that. Like I said, some of my test optional videos probably get into that. Is there free SAT practice on Super Tutor TV? No, 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 no. I don't know if there's free SAT like practice sets. I don't know. We have a free trial on our online course. So we have an online course for the SAT that's like a 6-month or 12-month subscription if you're taking the paper test. We're working on a digital SAT solution right now. I'm hoping that it's going to come out this summer. I would love it to come out in June. I can't promise it in June. I don't know if it'll be ready yet or not. But that we may have more kind of freemium content in. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to roll with that. We might do like a free practice test or something. But right now we have like a 5-day free trial on our course. So if you signed up for it, you can cancel, and we'll then set it to cancel at 5 days if you decide you don't want to keep it. And there's like some worksheets and things in there that you could use. Though the trial only includes certain amounts of the course, so you can't like, do the whole thing, but you can try it out and get a few exercises and stuff. Where can you find which schools would remain test optional for the 2023-2024 school year? I'm pretty sure I have a blog that goes over that. If you look through all my test optional videos, if you look up or if you Google test optional 2023 Super Tutor TV, we have a chart that we did, and it was last updated probably 6 months ago, and we probably need to update it again. And we'll probably do another video this summer after kind of everybody gets their stuff together. Like probably this July we'll do another video, and just for sure. But that's the thing. The thing is too, schools can announce their test optional and then they flip and they decide they're test required. And that's happened, or vice versa. So it's kind of like open season and people kind of do whatever they want. But hopefully they're finalizing things. What are the differences between the PSAT 10, 8, 9, and NMQST? So the National Merit Qualifying Exam is the regular PSAT. That's typically given to juniors, but it can also be given to sophomores, and it is not the PSAT 10. It is the PSAT. To qualify for National Merit, you can only qualify your junior year. That is the only year you can qualify when you take the PSAT. You cannot qualify sophomore year. So if you do amazingly sophomore year on the regular PSAT, it doesn't matter. You can't get national merit from it. You'll have to retake. The PSAT 10, 8, and 9 are adjusted for level. So rather than give kids like geometry and algebra questions that are possibly above the math classes that they've taken on average, the PSAT 10, for example, is going to rip out all the algebra 2 and a lot of the geometry. It's going to be more basic math and more algebra 1, but still challenging questions potentially. And 8 and 9 is going to be easier as well. It's going to be adjusted, particularly in the math section, but also the reading level of the passages. What do you recommend we do the day before the test? There's a YouTube video for that. I have 2. There's one, actually I have 3, I think. I have one that's probably what to pack for the SAT, so you can go look that up. I have another one that's like what to study the night before the SAT. And that's like if you've studied for a while, like how do you do a big review? Like what are the best things to study? And then I have a third one, which is how to cram for the SAT. And that's more toward people who like have done nothing. But what to do the night before the SAT, there should be a video called that or something similar to it on our channel, so you can look for it. I am a current sophomore and taking Algebra 2 for the summer. So is there any way I would do well for my PSAT? Yeah, because if you finish Algebra 2 before you take the PSAT, then you're going to have all that experience. So that's good. I am in community college and I have never taken the SAT because I am an immigrant. Should I take it? And will it be beneficial for transferring? Yes, if you have an SAT score, that can be helpful in the transfer process, especially if you're at that like 25th percentile or above for the schools you're transferring to. And a lot of universities will not require you to submit a test score, especially when you transfer. They didn't even used to make you submit a test score when you're transferring, but having it can certainly help you. So it's not a bad idea. How should I go about the writing section as of now? 1390, I just realized the passage and answer, but I just don't know what to do. So if you don't know what to do generally and you like have no idea what the answer is on the writing section, my best tip is you want to zoom out. And what I mean by that is most of the time when you're missing things, you're not quite clicking with clues that are in the passage itself, right? There's probably some clue, and that clue could be the structure of the passage. It could be the topic sentence of the paragraph you're placing this in that says there are many reasons why. And then you realize, oh, I need an additional reason because there's only one reason right now. So the best additional information to put here has to be a second reason because this topic sentence set us up and said we're going to have many reasons and we only have one reason. And if I put this other choice, even though it seems to blend in really well with the sentence above it, it doesn't add an additional reason. And then it seems like there's only one reason to do this. And so that topic sentence actually dictates why this has to be where it is. So things like that with the writing section. And the other thing I'll say about the writing section is you need to treat it like a reading section more. And if you treat it more like a reading section, you're going to start to unlock those last few questions that are really challenging. How many times, and I'll have more tips. And the other thing too, just public announcement, I'm having super seminars coming up. And maybe I can find a flyer for them on my desktop. Super seminars. We're doing super seminars this weekend. We're doing a writing, a math, and a reading. We have 2 this weekend, and then we have another the following weekend. They're 2-hour seminars for people who are overachievers or high scorers, or who want to know, how do I get the last 100 points on each section of the exam? If I look, hold on, super seminar. Let's see, super seminar. I don't know where the thing is. I'll have to look it up. But if you go to, and I'm just going to type it in here, www.supertutortv.com/super seminar. You can find out more about the days and times. They're going to be this afternoon Pacific time. And you can save $20. We have a special code for you guys with a code QA20. So if you want to get $20 off one of these 2-hour seminars, that's how you can do it. But they're usually, I don't expect they're going to be huge. I think they're probably going to be under 25 people. So if you want to get more personalized advice, if you have a lot more questions, or if you just want to kind of go over all my best strategies, I know I shared a little bit already on some of my reading strategies. If you want to dig deeper into those, that's a great way to do it. Okay, I'm going to go back to questions. Let's see. Let's see. Just a second. Okay, I have a week till I take the SAT. I'm aiming for at least a 1500. Check out our super seminars if you haven't. And have a near perfect reading writing score. Awesome. How would you recommend I attempt to do that on the math? So on the math section, usually what I like to do is figure out what you're missing or what kind of questions are most challenging for you. So depending on, how it just depends on how you are, what resources you have. One of the things that I like to do is take a practice test and then try to identify what type of problem that you're missing. And then I drill down that type of problem. And sometimes even when it's careless errors, sometimes those careless errors are from areas that are all the same. Sometimes we make careless errors, for example, in areas that are, that are redundant to how we've performed in the past. So something to keep in mind. Hopefully that helps. Let me look at some other things that we have here. Okay. And I finally found this. So this is our little flyer. So there's the information for our super seminars if you want to check them out. Okay. And I'm going to come back over here. As a 9th grader, what are the top 3 things I need to do or start through this summer as a 9th grader? So as a 9th grader, you have lots of time, but sometimes, it depends on how ambitious you are, right? It might be cool. You're taking the digital SAT. So I might kind of leave those materials alone for now, but there are some things you can do. One thing you can do is you can work on writing and language stuff. You can work on grammar. So if you wanted to get on Khan Academy or get our online course once it's available and just work through the grammar section, that's something that's kind of easy and you can knock out. So you could work on grammar rules. Another thing that you can do as a freshman, just to kind of get yourself in gear, is work on vocabulary. The new SAT, if you're a freshman, is going to have vocabulary. So it's going to be a little bit different from the SAT we have now. And you can try to find some ways to learn vocabulary. And whether that's, just making Quizlets for yourself, or I like books, 30 Days to a More Powerful Vocabulary, 6 Weeks to Words of Power. There's a bunch of them. I've listed some in some of my blogs as suggestions. But you can check out vocabulary books. So that's a second thing you do. So one thing you can do is brush up on your grammar. Second thing you can do is you can work on vocabulary. Third thing you can do is don't worry too much about the SAT, because if you develop your interests or work on like, what am I interested in and how do I improve, like explore what I'm interested in, so you have a better sense of direction, that's usually more useful than just the SAT piece. So the third thing is, my third SAT tip is don't worry too much yet about the SAT. Usually sophomore year, like winter sophomore year, is the first time I recommend most people prep for it, unless you're going for like that ultimate perfect score or you're really far away from your goal, in which case you might take a practice test and then you can start working earlier. It's a little bit harder right now because the digital SAT is new. So if you have time, I'm suggesting people wait a little more often than I used to. Will you create a cheat sheet for the digital SAT eventually? But the math is going to be the same. So if you go on our website, if you go to supertutortv.com, I think there is a free section somewhere. If you look on the top, free resources. Yes, there's a free resources tab if you go to supertutortv.com. And if you go in there, we have a math cheat sheet, and the digital SAT material is about the same as the current test. We don't see any changes in terms of content right now. There's just a little bit of change in terms of balance, if you get what I'm saying, meaning that some questions are occurring more often or less often on the test because it's shorter. But you can check out that cheat sheet and it will work for you too. Colleges for 2025 would count digital and paper SAT scores. Yes, you can take either and they'll count either. What else do we have? The last time I took the SAT, I already used 4 or 5 of the official practice tests. So how do I conserve my resources, or should I the next SAT in 4 weeks? Well, what you want to do is you want to get on the internet and you want to find the secret trove of QAS PDFs. That's what you want to do. They've been posted up on Reddit for quite a while, but it's like whack-a-mole. So like Reddit posts them, and then like College Board files a like copyright claim, and then it's like a whack-a-mole, and then they pop back up. These QASs are essentially release tests from the College Board. If you take the test, you can order a QAS of the actual test that you paid for and took, but there's no other way to pay for or order these tests. So a lot of people have just made PDFs of them and uploaded them online. A lot of private tutors trade in them. And if you have brothers or sisters, you can get them. So if you think there's only 8 practice tests, you are wrong. There's probably 30 more floating around on the internet. We also have some on our resources page. So if you go to supertutortv.com/resources, we've listed all the ones that have been publicly, legally released, which also includes a few tests from the state of Maine, which may or may not still work in terms of the links, because Maine has been releasing their tests for some of the years for the school day test. So those are also available online. But if you type in QAS SAT PDF and you hit that Google search, you can find probably 20 more tests somewhere. What else do we have? Is Notability free? Not anymore. They charge money, and I paid $4.99 for it, and I'm using the old version of Notability because the new version is really annoying. I am aspiring for bachelor's in dental school. Are there any extracurriculars? I don't know if the SAT is that. I know of those QAS, but they're like digital, so I don't know. Oh yeah, so are you taking the digital test, the person who asked about this? I know of those QAS. No, the QAS tests are for the paper SAT. The digital test will not have any QASs. Now, when it comes to studying for the digital SAT, there is so little material available right now, and that's what's going to make it really hard to prep for that. And I talked about that in the last video I did on the digital SAT, which I just did a couple weeks ago. So I don't know. Save them to Dropbox or Google Drive, I think. Yeah, they're digital. They're like in a big drive or something like that. Yeah, but they're all paper tests. You just download them in PDF and print them. There's a Dropbox folder with all the SAT QASs ever. Yeah. Paper. Yeah. So these QASs are a gold mine. You really got to find them and check them out. They're like the money. They're the money shot. They are the secret of every private tutor in America. I'm taking the March SAT. I've taken the PSAT, in which I got a 1260. I've taken 3 practice tests, and I got these sequentially. What can I do if I want to get a 1500? Well, sign up for another SAT because you only got 2 weeks. And it's not going to happen in 2 weeks. And you got to get on like a course of real serious study. And you need to basically probably, 1, plan to take about 10 more practice SATs. 2, you need to be able to identify what did I miss on this SAT and how can I work on those specific areas. Our online course has an engine that does that automatically. So if you take a practice test from the College Board, like tests 1 through 10, you can enter your results. And then we will create a list of all the tags of the questions that you missed. And you can click a button and create a custom study list, and we will tell you exactly which grammar lessons you need to watch, which math areas you need to work on, and then download those worksheets and you work on them. And that's like one way you can do it. You can also do it a little bit with Khan Academy. Khan Academy will also do some of this targeting. Their practice sets in the writing and language section are horrible. They are way too easy. So you've been warned. The math sets are okay, but they're a little bit unbalanced, meaning they have a lot of questions that don't come up on the test very often sometimes. So just be warned, but some of the other ones are okay. As a current sophomore, should I prepare for the digital or paper? That's a question you have to figure out yourself. If you're going to prep for the paper, you better start soon. And if you're going to prep for the digital, you probably want to wait. So it has more to do with your calendar than anything. And then the other question is, are you an athlete, right? That needs a score right away. If so, probably paper. If you're not an athlete, then maybe digital. For combined programs, I don't know. That's not SAT. How many hours of studying does it take to improve by 400 points? Minimum 1 year, 5 hours a week. Minimum. Maybe more. You can do the math, right? That's a lot of hours. A lot, probably. Cool. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys found this helpful and I answered some of your questions, office hours. Again, if you are headed for a super awesome score, or you want to know some of my best tricks that I teach to like my top scorers, my students who are usually scoring about a 670 or above on the writing and reading or math sections, if you want to know what those tips are, whether you're there yet or not, you're welcome to come. We don't care. But I'm going to teach to those really hard questions. So if you want to know how to crack into those really hard questions, I'm trying to compile as many of my really awesome little strategies as possible into these super seminars. So I'd love to see you guys there. And this is all the information. We're probably going to send out a packet about 48 hours in advance, which means I got to get that writing packet out soon. Or I guess, no, writing's not the first one. Math is the first one. So I got to get a math packet out probably tomorrow. But that's about it. It was awesome to see all of you guys. Thanks for coming, everyone. And have an awesome week. Take care. And again, you can save $20 on our super seminars with, what is it? QA20. Capital Q, capital A, 20. Fabulous. Take care, you guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.